Good day, everybody, and welcome to today's latest episode on my YouTube video series. And today we're going to talk about Malaysians working in Singapore, right? Are you going to rent for the rest of your life? And this is a topic a bit close to my heart because what happens is I'm also this category, right? Malaysians working in Singapore, and I consider myself a bit luckier. I came in earlier, and recently we met a number of these type of people. Like yesterday, I just met one. A few days ago, also I spoke to one on the phone, right? And this is a topic that I think maybe I should try to do a bit of national service for all the Malaysians who are working in Singapore, right, to help you do some planning. So, what happens is that when I was young many years ago, right, I like many Malaysians, right, we came to Singapore to work, right, to earn the strong Singapore dollar, right, and we spend in that time we spent many years here in Singapore, right. So the question is, after you settle down in Singapore, you're a bit more comfortable. Normally, the first 1 2 years, new country, new job, right? So you take a bit of time to get used to this, right? You don't think too much, right, about property issues, right? But after a couple of years, if you settle down in Singapore, you like the place, you get used to your job, you do your job well, right? The next question is then what are you going to do with regards to property? So normally the first couple of years you are renting, right? You normally are renting a room in Singapore. In some cases, you'll be renting a whole unit in Singapore, right? And of course, Singapore rent is not cheap, right? So the question is, if you're going to continue working in Singapore, are you going to be paying rental for the rest of your life? So of course, some Malaysians do go back to Malaysia, to their hometown, but I'm sure many of you are also going to stay in Singapore for longer periods of time. So what are the options that you have, right, as a Malaysian working in Singapore in terms of next steps on the property ladder, right? If you don't want to keep renting forever. So option number one is, of course, you convert, right? Basically, you become a Singaporean citizen, right? And actually, many that does happen, right? It's part of the Malaysia brain drain. So a lot of younger Malaysians convert to become Singaporean. And once you become Singaporean, right, then of course you can buy Singapore property. No need to pay ABSD. You get better options, right? As a Singaporean citizen, right? The other way is, of course, you marry a Singaporean, right? So I had a cousin married a Singaporean, right? So she married a Singaporean and become spouse. Then, of course, a spouse married couple, they can go apply for BTO or even buy resale flat. So that is option number one, right? If you want to get onto the property ladder in Singapore. And usually you say, Ryan, do I need to buy property in Singapore? My opinion is, if you are going to spend a majority of your life, right, moving forward in Singapore, right, because income in Singapore is good, right? If you go back to Malaysia, you most likely will not get income as high as this, right? Then you have to consider, like I said, you don't want to pay rental for the rest of your life. So buying in Singapore should always be the first priority, right? I've mentioned this before in my earlier videos. In case it's the first time you heard this, right? Buying in Singapore should always be your first priority, more for your own security, your sense of belonging, right? Your safety, that you always have a home to come back to in Singapore, right? So this should be the first option if possible, right? So to achieve this first option, the best way, of course, is option number one, where you become a Singaporean or you marry a Singaporean, right? And that may not always be possible, right? If you don't marry a Singaporean, you wait to 35, right? Become Singaporean, then wait until 35 to buy under a singles scheme, right? But if you don't want to convert, right, you don't want to convert to become Singaporean, or you cannot find a Singaporean to marry, right, then you have to go to option number two. Now, option number two is you buy a private property in Singapore and you pay the ABSD. So the best way to do this, of course, is to become a PR first, permanent resident of Singapore, right? You apply, you try, you get. Most Malaysians should be able to get if you are fairly young, right? Ideally married, right? But fairly young, you should be able to get a PR in good time. And if you get a PR, then you can buy Singapore private property, pay a lower ABSD. In fact, many other nationalities also do this, especially the China and the Indians who come to Singapore, right? Because they are the second best category, they can get PR in Singapore. So they also do this, right? Become PR and buy private property lah. Of course, the issue is that private property is not cheap, right? It's expensive, right? Even today, you want to buy a one bedroom in the resale market, you're talking about what, 800,000 Singapore dollars. Minimum. You buy new one, it will cost you even more, right? So and then we're only talking about one bedrooms here, so I haven't even talked about the bigger sizes, right? If you want to have a family and so on and so forth. So but that's option number two lah, right? To get onto the property ladder, if your income is high enough, if you work in banking or tech, right, that might be possible, where you are able to buy a property private as a PR in Singapore. Now, option number three is that we skip Singapore entirely. It means we assume that Singapore not possible, too expensive, right? I'm not going to do that. Then the next best situation, of course, you may have to buy property in your hometown. So if you come from KL, you come from Penang, you come from Malacca, you come from Sabah Sarawak, right? You may have to buy property in your hometown. That usually happens because you consider that you want to go back to your hometown one day, right? That after retirement or you stop working in Singapore, right? You want to go back to your hometown, right? But there's some issues with this concept also because it assumes that when you go back to your hometown, that means your whole life in Singapore, you're single, right? I don't know, because you've got family, all that, right? Then you have another issue. But yeah, I mean, you can buy in your hometown. Suddenly, because of family requirements, you may have to buy in your hometown for your parents or for your spouse. If your spouse and children are still in your hometown, right, you may have to buy your hometown. So that's option number three. Option number four, actually, which is the one that I want to highlight, is that you should consider buying property in Johor Bahru. Now, Johor Bahru, especially if you're not from Johor, you're not from JB, Johor Bahru might be very alien to you. And many of you Malaysians, right, especially if you come from KL or Penang, the more urban, more sophisticated cities, you say that, hey, JB, no good. JB is not better than KL, JB is not better than Penang, right? I know many KL people and Penang people feel that way, right? They feel that JB is just a poor extension of Singapore, right? So and cannot compare to KL or Penang, right? I understand where you're coming from. So they will not consider to buy property in JB. And in many cases, these kind of people, whether they're from KL or Penang, usually they are not familiar with JB. They don't know JB when their knowledge of JB could be as bad or even worse than a Singaporean, right? But if you're going to spend long time in Singapore, right, I do think JB is a option to consider because when RTS is coming, right, in case you don't know, we are doing the MRT linking Singapore to JB. This RTS will be ready by end of 2026, right? So you assume by early 2027 you can cross by RTS. Now, many of you may feel that or you still half-hearted about this option because RTS is not ready yet, right? Once RTS is ready, right, you can travel the board across the border easily, and you feel, hey, actually RTS is not so bad after all. Like JB become a very viable option because you are paying a lot cheaper than Singapore property, right? And you can still have a foothold in Singapore, coming into Singapore through the RTS because you work here, right? A lot of your life is still in Singapore from your working job, right? So JB becomes a very viable option. So for those of you who are new to JB, right? If you are Malaysian working in Singapore, new to this video, not from Johor one, I suggest you spend more time in JB, understand it better. JB has improved a lot over the past 5-10 years, right? It's a lot more sophisticated now, not so kampong, not so ulu, right? Of course, it's not the equal as KL, but it's getting better, right? And in years to come, you will get even better, right? And JB now represents an option which is very viable for many Malaysians working in Singapore because of the RTS. Travel time is shortened, right? You still can use your Malaysia advantage, your Malaysia IC to buy in JB using a Singapore dollar income. I think that's a very, very big advantage that you should consider. And the RTS makes it easy to go to work next time through Singapore, especially if you work in the northern half of Singapore, right? If you work like anywhere all the way to Yishun or Bishan or to maybe up to Bukit Batok, Bukit Panjang, right? Going to JB is easier a lot, right? And JB has become a bit like Shenzhen in the sense that there are many different nationalities in JB. Now you go to Johor today, right? There are a lot of other Malaysians from other parts of Malaysia staying in JB, right? JB become like an immigrant city even within Malaysia itself, right? Now when I go to JB, right, I see a lot of people from Penang, from KL, from Sabah Sarawak living in JB. They are not JB locals, right? So JB population has swelled to over 2 million, right, alone, right? So JB become very international or very immigrant city within Malaysia in that sense, right? So I think JB is a very good option, right, to buy a property in Malaysia that you can still stay, right? Small or big, really up to you, right? Depend on whether you got family or no family, right? Where you buy in JB also is really up to you, depend on your requirements, right? And you can still access Singapore easily. You become like a semi-Singaporean from that perspective lah. So I think JB is a big option that you guys should consider. And the reason why I'm also doing this video because today, many of you who may be in Singapore for 2-3 years already, right? The rental that you're paying in Singapore, the $700-800, $1,000 every month you're paying in Singapore can easily pay for one bank installment for a property in Malaysia. So I mean, the question you ask yourself, why are you so happy to pay the landlord so much rental? This amount of money every month, you can fund one mortgage for a house in JB. Why you want to pay this money to the landlord? And actually, many Malaysians, Johor Malaysians, are already thinking that, right? Why be so hero, pay so much rental in Singapore? You should save some of that money, top up a little bit, you can go and pay for one property in Johor, and that's what they're doing now, right? Buying in JB. That's the reason why many Malaysians are buying JB today, right? Because RTS is coming, right? And they feel that with RTS, is you can enjoy some of the benefits of living in Singapore without having to pay Singapore prices. Okay, so I hope this video was useful to you. It's an eye opener. So if you are a Malaysian working in Singapore, you should start to sit down, think a little bit, and strategize, right? The four options I mentioned earlier. Number one, become Singaporean or marry Singaporean. Number two, become Singapore PR and buy private property in Singapore. Number three, you buy a property in your hometown with some intention to go back to your hometown at some point. Number four, you buy in JB because you still want to spend long term your time in JB. You have friends in Singapore already, so going back to your hometown is not really a option. So these are the four options to think about. Think careful through thoroughly, right? I suggest you spend more time in JB, visit the area if you haven't done so already, and understand JB better, how the city is like, what the locations that you like, right? And how the RTS will happen, right? And when RTS happens next year, go and try it out, and you'll find that JB is actually quite a convenient option. Okay, and decide which of the four options that you're going to go for. Okay, so thank you very much. I hope this video was useful to you. In case you want to talk more about this topic, you can WhatsApp me at my phone number 8126-1626. More than happy to have a non-obligatory conversation with you to help you decide. And also, if you like this content on my YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel to get more content that you can share with your family and friends about retirement in Johor Bahru, buying property in Johor Bahru, or for like Malaysians like you, how to plan your future in Singapore, JB, right? Extension of your future planning of your life. Okay, thank you very much, and bye bye.